Hey everyone, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee new body, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Base Plate Kit with removable arms. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, we'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I thought it'd be useful just to try to answer one of the big questions, one of the main ones that we get when it comes to setting up a flat tow. And that's, what parts am I actually going to need to tow my vehicle down the road? And you're going to have 5 main parts. The first will be your base plate, which gives you an attachment point to allow you to hook up your tow bar. So that tow bar is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of your vehicle to the back of your coach. Third main part, you'll have safety cables, and these are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main part will be your tow bar wiring, and that'll just transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your vehicle, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is hit the brakes in your Jeep whenever you hit the brakes in your coach, helping to bring you to a more predictable and safe stop. This is what the front of your Jeep can look like when you are all hooked up to your motorhome, and I think it looks pretty good. You know, everything's organized for the most part, easy to see and easy to get to. So it should make hooking everything up pretty straightforward. You know, you can glance back here and make sure everything's set up correctly and so on and so forth. Something I do want to mention with these Jeeps, so this base plate's going to work with a lot of them, but there's just so many different submodels and different editions and things like that when it comes to these Jeeps. You know, something you really want to check is to make sure to use the drop-down menu on our fit guide. You know, punch in your correct submodel or what edition you have and make sure that this base plate is going to bolt up to your particular vehicle. If not, nothing really to worry about. You know, flat towing Jeeps is extremely popular, and if you happen to have some different edition or submodel, chances are really good that there's going to be a base plate very similar to this that'll work with your particular vehicle. This is the way the front of your Jeep can look whenever you're not flat towing, and I think that's important because you're not always going to be pulling your vehicle behind your motorhome, right? And in this particular case, I think it looks pretty good actually. I feel like as long as you take your time with the trimming, whenever you get to that point, you can have a pretty clean install. And so in our case, we cut out very minimal parts here in the front of our fascia. The base plate, you know, was then able to kind of pass through, and it don't come out very far. And with the base plate being a gloss black, you know, it kind of blends in. You know, the grill almost camouflages it. And so, right, you know, if you just take a quick glance at it, you don't really notice anything out of the ordinary. But with that said, when you are ready to use it, everything's pretty easy to get to and easy to figure out. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time or thought to make this happen. And that's partly due to the fact that the base plate is going to use these removable arms. So when you're ready to hook up, you take these arms, push them in, rotate it about a quarter turn. It'll lock into place. Same deal with the one on the other side of the vehicle. And now we're going to have that attachment point that we need to hook up our tow bar. When it comes to setting up your tow bar, you're just going to take the end, line it up with the removable arm, and then you'll have a pin and a clip that you can use to essentially lock it down. Safety chain openings there, since they do come out a little bit, they're really easy to get to. They'll work with pretty much any size hook that you might have on your tow bar's cables there. And as far as what tow bars the base plate is going to be compatible with, all the Roadmaster Direct Connect styles, it's going to pair up with those. And even some of the other manufacturers. So for example, today we have an Etrailer.com XHD tow bar with the Roadmaster ends on it. And let's say maybe you already have a Blue Ox tow bar or something along them lines that you really like, and you'd rather not have to buy a whole new tow bar. Chances are pretty good you can use it, and that's because a lot of the manufacturers are making these adapter ends, allow you to just switch the ends out and let those different brands of tow bars pair up with the base plate. When it comes down to it though, a base plate you really can't go wrong with. You know, it looks good and it's gonna be easy to use and figure out, so can't really ask for too much more there. As far as the installation goes, it's definitely involved. You are gonna have to remove the fascia, you're gonna have to trim and cut and drill and do some of those things, which isn't totally uncommon by any stretch when it comes to installing base plates. So something to think about, you know, if you stay focused and take your time, and hopefully we can help you out along the way and speed that process up if you are installing this yourself. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage and get started on it. To begin our installation, we're gonna be here at the front of our Jeep. You can go ahead and pop the hood, and first thing we can do, we have this big plastic radiator cover. We can get it removed. So there's gonna be a total of 10 pushpin style fasteners, just like this one here. So 5 on each side of the vehicle. And to get these out, you just take a screwdriver or a trim tool if you got one, work underneath the head of it, and you're able to pull the base out. We'll just work our way down here until we get all of them out. And I want to mention, from this point on, whatever we do to one side of the vehicle, we'll also do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. Once you get all of them out, this will just simply lift off and we can set it to the side for now. With that out of the way, that'll expose 3 Torx bit fasteners. So 3 on each side. And so we'll take a T40 and pull all those out. There's also going to be a 10mm head fastener. So this bolt right here, get that removed. You can move to your front wheel wells now, and along the edge of it, you're going to have a total of 5 fasteners that kind of just run all the way down. And you can use an 8mm socket to get all of them pulled out. Helps too if you turn your wheels all the way to one side or the other. It gives you a little bit more room to work. Once all those are out, you can take your wheel well liner and just kind of push that back out of the way. And where the quarter panel actually meets the fascia, right there in that little pocket, you're going to have a 10mm head bolt. So we'll get that pulled out as well here. You're able to disconnect this electrical connector now. So with these, you can take a small flathead screwdriver and you're just going to kind of push back on that white piece there. And a lot of times these are pretty tight, so just keep that in mind. It actually just come disconnected there, but what you can do usually, if you just pry up on that white piece, and then you can get in there and kind of underneath, kind of pry up on that, and that'll allow you to separate the 2 connector ends. On our vehicle, we have this washer fluid sprayer that goes to the front, and over on the passenger side, we'll have to disconnect that. So I took a pair of pliers and pinched the hose, and then this, you just pinch down on each end. And I'm just going to cap this. I just have a piece of tubing here and I stuffed a bolt in it. That way we can put that over it and get rid of our pliers. That way we're not pinching the hose forever. I'm just going to tuck that up out of the way. And then it looks like this connector will have to be separated as well. So this will work essentially the same way as the others. Just push down on that tab and pull the 2 ends apart. We can separate this piece of wheel well trim now, and I put some painter's tape along the edges here just to help, you know, protect the paint That way we don't scratch anything. But essentially this is just snapped into place. So there's some plastic fasteners that this is going through. And I'm gonna come in from the back side and pinch them. And while I'm pinching them, I'm gonna pull out on this. So one thing I like to do is just kind of grab it, start to kind of work it loose. And then I'm going to work my way around here. Once I get one or two of these popped out, I'll show you what I'm doing here, give you a better idea. This is a little tricky to see from in here. So we're just gonna work our way up here. And so that's what I was pinching on. Just kind of squeezing those clips. While I was doing that, pulling out, same deal with the white ones. So you have a handful of them kind of just up along the way here. And we're gonna go until about this point. We'll just take a rag and stuff it in there like that to help keep it drawn away from our vehicle. Underneath the front now, along this edge, we're gonna have 5 8mm head fasteners. So we'll work our way across and pull out. And then we'll switch over to a 10mm and get these two removed. There will be another 8mm in this area here on each side. Right there, we'll pull that out too. More than likely, you'll have 2 more fasteners as well, kind of a little bit further towards the back. Ours are missing. If I had to guess, they're probably an 8 or 10. You can pull them out. Ours are gone already, so I ain't gonna worry about it. And we can grab the front of this splash shield and kind of just drop it down like this. To make it a little easier to get our fascia off, since we're gonna have to kind of pull up on the grill and maneuver things around, there's this panel with this push pin on each side. I'm gonna remove it. That way we can actually lift up on it and give us a little more working room. You can have someone give you a hand with this. It makes it a lot easier, but we can actually get the fascia removed. So we'll start in the corner, and this pulls out. Honestly, this little tab here, when you're trying to release it, if you push down like that, when you're pulling out, it tends to come right out. And then essentially, and it kind of just unsnaps here. And up top, we'll have to kind of take this and carefully lift it up over the hood stop. Work everything free. We should be all disconnected electrical wise, which we are. And with this free now, we'll go ahead and set it off to the side. On the passenger side, you'll have this ambient air temp sensor, and it just has a push pin fastener holding it in. So we'll go ahead, pop that out, and just kind of let it hang down for now. The bumper beam needs to get removed now, and so on each side, you'll have a 10mm head nut. I'm going to remove it and then just put it on hand tight, couple of threads. That way when we remove the rest of the bolts, if the bumper beam wants to come off, it's not going to fall on us. But then we'll switch out for a 16mm. You'll have this one right here. And one on the bottom. So I got the other hardware on the other side removed already. We'll remove these nuts. We can get this out of our way, and it's not going to be getting reinstalled. We can get our horns removed now, and so I'm going to disconnect it first, I think. Very similar to the other ones, you know, push down on those tabs and release it. And it's just going to be held in place with a single 10mm head fastener. Our electrical wiring here that was for our horn, we're going to release all the clips holding that in place. Just pry out on those. Up until that point should be pretty sufficient. We'll just tuck that out of the way. And then we're going to have this tab, or this little stud here, that'll be in the way of the base plate. So I'm just going to take a hammer and push that in just like that. We're going to need to cut a little portion of this metal out here. That way our base plate will clear. And so there's a diagram and instructions that you can follow. And I'm going to use a couple of tools. I'm going to use a Sawzall and an angle grinder to get this material removed. When you cut this, essentially what you're looking for is you want this black aluminum piece to essentially be flush with the outside of the frame, because our base plate's going to go on there and kind of hug it. So if this is overhanging, it's going to cause interference. So just figured I'd mention that. And if you do happen to scratch up the paint or anything here on the frame, not a bad idea to come back with spray paint or some type of coating to apply it to it and cover up that bare metal. Well, this little plastic piece here too, that's going to kind of overhang, and with our base plate being right there, it's probably going to be in the way, if I had to guess. So I'm just going to trim a small portion of it off there to give us that clear coverage. Grab our side brace now, and these are side specific, so make sure to check the instructions, make sure you get the right one. But it's simply just going to line up like that, and the holes that were originally used to hold our bumper beam on, that's what we're going to use in the front. So take that factory hardware and get both of them started. And I'm going to push this flat against the side of the frame there. While I'm kind of holding it like that, I'm going to come back with my 16 and just snug these down. Where we have this teardrop shape, you can use that as a guide to create an opening. That way we can get some of our hardware in through the base plate and into the frame. So I got a hole saw, just made a mark there where I want to drill. And we'll get that hole created. On the side here, we can use these holes in our base plate as a guide to create openings into the actual frame. With these plastic pieces that we cut out, you are going to have it set up something like this, essentially enough room because the base plate, the center section is going to slide in between there, so you don't want any interference. Just kind of holding it up there too, I noticed this piece is going to be in the way as well. And since we're relocating that sensor that was connected to it, I'm just going to get it removed. That out of the way. And then once you have both of the sides of the base plates on, you get your holes drilled and everything, I'm going to just slightly loosen up these bolts a little bit. That way this will have some movement and it'll make it easier to get everything lined up once you put our center section in. We'll take the center piece and line that up with the side plates, and what I'm going to do is just take one of the bolts and a flat washer, push that through, actually on both sides. Probably wouldn't hurt if you could have someone give you a hand with this part, but see if you can do this alone here. kind of rotate it up into position. So there'll be 3 of those. We can push through. Just like that. And for the time being, I'm just going to take one on each side. We'll have a split lock washer and a nut. Put that on and just get a few threads started on it. That way everything will kind of hold in place. I'm going to have 2 more bolts, and with these just put on split lock washers, and on the threads I'm going to put on some red Loctite, and eventually we'll come back and for all the bolts holding the base plate, we'll put this stuff on. And what you're going to do is take one of the handle nuts, place that in through the opening, all right, and then that's going to line up with that hole that we created. We'll just go ahead and get not only this one, but this top one started hand tight here. With all the hardware started now, essentially what I did is pull these back out. You know how we left them loose, and I put red Loctite on them. And then if you remember, we just put one nut, you know, a split lock washer and a nut on this bottom one. So I put red Loctite on that, and then all the others receive that same combination, you know, with the Loctite on it. And so what I'm going to do first, these side ones, I'm going to take a 3/4 inch socket and just snug these down. And then I'm going to snug those down next. Come back now with a 3/4 inch socket and wrench, hold the nut from spinning, and snug all these bolts down. Gonna make sure and come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in your instructions. Once you have the bolts torqued, these handles from the handle nuts, we're gonna just take a pair of snips and cut them out of the way so they're not hanging out. At this point, you can take your horns and get them reinstalled the opposite way that we removed them. And then you can focus your attention on the ambient air temp sensor. So with this, you're just gonna kind of run it on top of the base plate. And I just used a couple of zip ties to keep it secure. We can move over to the back side of our fascia now. And we're gonna have this piece of foam here. And on each end, there's gonna be a couple of these keepers in place. And since this will have to get removed to clear the base plate when we get all this back together, I'm just going to snip those. Prime up out of the way. Did the other side already. And this whole foam piece here should be able to slide off, and it's not going to be getting reinstalled. At this point, it'd be a great time to install some of your other flat towing components like wiring and a braking system. And I say that because with the fascia off, there's just so much more room to work. It's a lot easier to see what you're doing, and you know, makes things, saves you a lot of time, more or less. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And once I'm done with that, we'll come back, go to our fascia, and figure out what we need to trim to get everything back in place. So now that we have everything wrapped up here in the front and our other components installed, we can figure out what we need to do to get the fascia back in place. So the instructions actually come with a template, at least ours did, that you can kind of use to give you an idea. So I like to use these in conjunction with, right now I just took it and set it roughly into position. I'm going to kind of eyeball everything, see what we need to cut, and go from there. So I think what I'm going to try to do is initially the fascia's hitting our safety chain things there. And so I think I'm just going to try to cut out a little bit at a time and just slowly push our fascia back into place. And I think that'll give us a way better idea on what we need to cut and where we need to cut. So these grills are quite challenging actually to get it to look really good, at least from my experience, just because there's so much going on. I like to use a multi-tool on this type of stuff. It seems to give you the cleanest cut there, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So I was able to get our fascia all trimmed out and reinstalled the opposite way that we removed it, and here's how it turned out. Essentially what I did was just put it up in place, and I cut out the openings for the safety cable attachments first, and then was able just to kind of push it further back. You know, then I was able to tell where it was going to hit those round openings. So trimmed some out, pushed it back, trimmed more out, pushed it back, and essentially did that for everything here until we got it to fit into position. Once it was in position, then I went in and put all the nuts and bolts back and re-secured everything. Don't forget to plug in any of your electrical components as well. But with all that done, I think we're in pretty good shape, and that will finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Base Plate Kit on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee new body.